Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for our Work from Home Wednesday webinars. This week, we'll dig a bit deeper on the portals aspects and more around the customer engagement, partner and employee portals, and some of the capabilities that are possible there. If there are questions from anyone, feel free to drop them in the chat as we go. And if someone can maybe just confirm my slides are moving along here, I'll just hop over quickly to the agenda. With me today on the call is our VP of Services, Terry Schmidt. He is got quite a bit of experience here in the portals, and I think what he is going to take us through here is some content on a customer service portal slides. So with that said, here's some of the topics we'll just cover off, and in the next half hour, we'll basically walk through what we're seeing, some trends around people utilizing where, how, and why to get started with portals, both for customer purposes, for partner, and just what the definition of that means in terms of partners. Maybe we'll drill into that a little bit, and employee self-service portals. So I think, not to steal too much thunder from the rest of the content, but we're really seeing a convergence of a digital presence for an organization, a company, a brand, whatever that context may be, and providing personalized web experiences. So really emerging of the portals and external facing websites more. So really the intent of this is to just answer very quickly and simply what the heck are portals and how can you use them to provide an overall better experience for anybody, both internally and externally, that you're conducting business with. So moving on here, I'll just hop over and start to dig into this. Keeping up with the changes. I think we're kind of all exhausted from the amount of change or the amount of COVID-related messaging and content that we've been seeing and hearing in the last few months. But as things are starting to stabilize, I think we're seeing people who are wanting to engage in different formats and different fashions in portals here. So I think one of the things businesses are being challenged with is just being up to date and current and as quickly as possible. I know it's kind of cliche, and I may be kind of annoyed with hearing the term, it's a fluid situation, but in a lot of cases in the last couple of months, frankly, it has been a pretty fluid situation. So how do you convey that message and just communicate cleanly and clearly to people is something we've been seeing a lot of. Encouraging customer engagement. A couple ideas and tips here just for people to think about here, but I think the idea here is just making things as easy to do business as possible with your company, whether that's people who need to use it in an employee self-service fashion to, I don't know, maybe see their compensation statements or what their vacation allotment might be, or people who just simply want to resolve their own problems in a customer service format, or simply want to do more business with you and they want to open their wallet wider and share more of their cash with you in terms of procuring more services or more product. So how do you do that? I think the one, as we're going through and just putting this content together, one thing we're seeing as well is a lot of people who want to use a portal to create that as a platform for knowledge sharing, whether that's an education-based program. Certainly lots of people being forced to shift, and you look at the education vertical being for the foreseeable future completely digital and conducting courses online. I'm sure anybody who has someone younger in their home has been, in addition to juggling their work life, they've also been part-time tutor and part-time teacher. I know I've been on enough of those calls where there's been a first grade math lesson going on in the corner at the same time. So how do you do that and just make things more accessible for people to consume content, or how do you then start to reach people with your own education materials if that's part of your service offering as a business? So I think those are some things we're seeing, but in addition to that, just the feedback side and what we'll really start to represent here is when we get into the demo aspect of this is the customer service ticket, and seeing where your service request is at any point in time. This graphic, I'll just maybe just grab a sip of water here and let everybody consume what they're seeing here. This is a very, very big slide, and I think certainly if you get into any of the Microsoft content or you caught anything from the Microsoft Biz Apps Summit earlier in May, you certainly saw this at a few different points in time, but where the whole Dynamics platform can really start to take shape and come together is around this whole concept of digital feedback loops and collecting information from either an employee, really the employee or customer side, I think is where we're kind of focused on for the context of today. So how do you engage and solicit feedback or expose a personalized web experience out to customers in one regard, or by the same token, employees? And then how do you feed that back into maybe the backside of the business around operations or product transformation, and how do you start to collect and solicit some customer data to build that into your future service offerings or your future product offerings? Terry, you've been around the Microsoft world long enough. What do you think about this? Do you see this in practice today in any way, shape, or form at Batak or with some of the people that you're working with on Dynamics?
For sure. I mean, feedback is always hugely important in how you evolve your journey with tools and with data, and getting feedback from the employees, your customers, even the services themselves and how they're being used, and some of the analytics behind that goes a long way into how you improve your business and your operations.
Yeah, the analytics. That's now seeing even simple little things where we're able to pull Power BI dashboards out and surface them up in Teams or do other little things like that internally. I think now more than ever, and especially if you look at the Power platform where the Power Apps portals are part of that now, it's easier. Microsoft is making it easier for people to get started and get going with their own portal experience. So I think that's part and parcel to what we're seeing and where the market is going. Specifically on the context of customer self-service, I know that's a topic or a theme that's been bandied about for quite some time, but what really does that mean? I'll just kind of zero in really quickly here in the interest of time and not boring anybody to that one on the right-hand side. 9 out of 10 people want, it's a customer expectation. You've got a means of serving yourself as a customer. If I can find the answer to myself, let me do it. I think those are the companies that are successful in attracting and then retaining and ultimately growing more productive relationships with people over time. So on that, just to drill a bit deeper on this, the whole 24/7 nature, I think we've talked about that a few times at this point, but I think the other element and something thematically that certainly comes up in maybe more service-based businesses than product-based businesses is certainly the ability to scale, to say, in particular from a customer support or a customer service aspect, I have a finite number of people, and in particular, if it gets into more of a technically oriented type of service organization, you really want to make sure you're using those people in the most effective and efficient means possible. So having some intelligent thought process and design where lower level or repetitive type inquiries are captured and people can self-serve, and to tie it back to some of that digital feedback loop thought process where you're starting to build up your own knowledge base and find out more pages or FAQ pages, or even, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit in last week's presentation. If you want to go back and look at that one around customer service that Thomas presented around the virtual agents and some of the chatbot pieces, where some of those, I know it's maybe not always the most personal experience interacting with the chatbot, but if it's a very simple, quick, easy answer, it does provide a lot of value here. So customer portals around. I think the big piece here, Microsoft likes to talk thematically, certainly about being trustworthy, and the more you can just, I think in general, I'll oversimplify this and say if you can keep people informed as to where things are at in the process, or if people can have line of sight to it and just be, if you can be as transparent as possible, it only boosts your credibility and boosts your trust. So I think those are some simple things there, and I think one of the other things that we have noticed and some good value is in terms of surfacing up reporting, where we may used to previously maybe had a very manual process to surfacing up reports, or to do it at a specified date and time. We can really start to expose some of that, and people can just go on their own and see where things are at in a more fluid and ongoing basis. And you can really start to guide people down the process too. I think, just a customer example here where it's a manufacturing based scenario. Think of it as a 5-step build process in a manufacturing scenario, where at each stage along the way, I could log in conceptually to a portal and see where my product is in the building process. Some people, that's, depending on the nature of the business, there's some serious value there. So those are, again, just some of the types of things we're starting to see. To drill it in a little bit further here and just get into the case management side of things, this is pretty much where I'll start to kind of segue it over here to Terry, and we can go through some of the case and service management pieces that we have ready to drive through today. But a couple of things there. I think automation and process efficiency are the two primary themes. So making sure that you have well thought out processes and it's repetitive, and it's almost kind of like the McDonald's franchise type of thought process where it's the same every time. People know what to expect. It becomes habitual, it becomes routine, and therefore faster and more efficient. And again, the theme of transparency, in particular, if you look at case management, where you can just expose to people and say, hey, here's all the cases we've had in the last umpteen years. Terry, do you have any other thoughts on the case management side of things in a kind of a conceptual level, or some practices you wish people would adopt more from being the leader of a service group of approximately 20 people? How has case management been an impact for you? Just to put you on the spot with a question like that.
I think it's some of the challenges comes down to consistency of getting the requests in and engaging with customers. The challenge around some people like to make a phone call or send out emails to people they know specifically in an organization, versus going through a portal that can make sure it gets triaged properly and routed to the right people that can support it, especially across multiple workloads or support areas that you might have in an organization. So I think that's one challenge, that trying to get customers to also use a portal so that they have a consistent experience versus a random email that might go to myself. And I don't necessarily typically handle or triage case support work directly, but come in as assistance afterwards, versus our direct support team, and who does it route to, who should work on it, how do you escalate it, those kind of things. And having more consistent process and capturing data, a little more consistency as it comes through, helps with some of the automation you might want to put around that, such as escalations and routing to specific groups and notifications as well, right?
Yeah, excellent. It's nice to hear from someone who has to be at maybe a 30,000 foot view on that type of thing for a team of people on a delivery side. So thanks for sharing that. I'm just going to kind of shift thematic gears here to the website, and do we really need a portal? And I think oftentimes where we'll be having conversations with people around their sales visions on dynamics or marketing automation, and the portal experience tends to be a future consideration. We'll just say that, they're building the house and they're roughing in the rec room in the basement, but the portal is something of a future goal. And I just think now more than ever, the web presence here, where I'm reaching your organization, I'm hitting your site, and being exposed the opportunity to log in and have a specific, based on my preferences, behaviors, past histories, my demographic and firmographic type of qualities. How can I have a personalized experience? And portals are a pretty simple and easy way to do that. Better customer service. Here's just a few simple tips here on that. I think we've already talked about the whole concept of a find out more about us type of page or an FAQ page. Use of screenshots and video. I think certainly video is becoming more and more important, and something we're trying to do as part of this, whether that's in a gated type of fashion on the more general website or in a personalized type of fashion within a portal experience. Certainly some things to think about there. Yeah, I don't know. Terry, do you have anything else on that in terms of these items we've surfaced up here? Or do we want to get right into the demo side?
Yeah, nothing further to add here.
Okay, well, I'll pass the baton over to you on that. And as we go through this, I think there's one thing I know that I'm interested in seeing here is certainly the ability to what the experience is like as I'm hopping on the website for the first time, and how do I get set up, and how do I start to authenticate, and then what's my experience look like from there. So I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Luke. So we're going to today demo our Batak customer portal. Chose that because it kind of highlights some of the things Luke has been talking about around the case management, customer service, as well kind of showcases custom entities that we've done in Dynamics that we can quickly pull up and show out on a portal, as well as external integration with other services and tools that are not part of the Dynamics in the portal. So starting off at the login page, there's a couple of different ways that this can be served up to your customers or to the people using your portal. There's certainly an option for people to register, which we actually have turned off in this case. And this comes down to, what's who's your customer base and how do you want them to use it? In our case, we don't want just random individuals signing up to the portal. So we give them a specific invite that they have to redeem, and they can then log in. And every customer that connects to the portal as a user is a contact in our Dynamics system. And so that person can either log in with a username and password that they have specified and is stored in Dynamics, or they can use one of their own identities that they already have, such as a social identity like Google, or their Office 365 or Azure AD account. And so we'll use that today. I'll log in with my current Batak account. So I'll be pretending to be person, Terrence, working for Acme Incorporated. And so I jump into Batak's portal and I get an initial view of kind of a tailored homepage that showcases contextually the information that we are collecting about Acme and stuff that I can kind of self-service. I can look at my projects or support tickets and even engage with the customer subscriptions or licenses that Batak is providing to my organization, as well as some charts that are showing up around cases.
Speaking of those charts, Terry, if I could just interject, you maybe want to just zoom in a bit on your browser. The font, I think, might be a touch on the small side. Thanks.
All right. Additionally, as a person jumping into this portal with an account, I can go and edit my profile. And we haven't changed anything on this profile page as it stands. So this is kind of out of the box where you have some basic information about yourself. And Batak employees can also go and update that contact record to see the same information and tailor it as well. So it works on both sides. I'm going to start with customer subscriptions. So this is an example of connecting to an external service. So although the portal is driven and primarily intended to surface content from a Dynamics 365 or a CDS environment, a Power Apps environment, you can connect to other services and other systems that you might have in your organization. In this particular case here, we're connecting through an API to Microsoft service that provides us the licensing management and information around our customers. So as an Acme employee, I can go in here and see the subscriptions and licenses I have that Attack has procured for me. And I can go in there, and this is real-time connecting to Microsoft service external API. And I can go and update my licenses or reduce them. And therefore do a little bit of self-service without having to call up somebody and say, hey, can you go add a new license for me for my Power BI, let's say. Additionally there, we also surface out our projects to our customers. So when we're actively doing work with our customers, Attack, and we've won an opportunity, those turn into projects. And this is a custom entity that we built up inside of our Dynamics environment. And we can surface this out to our customers so that they can see, okay, what active projects do I have going on? And in the case of things like support projects, we might have a monthly kind of expectation of only using up 2 hours a month, let's say, for support. It's a small customer here. But I can go in here and see, okay, how much have I currently used this month? What's my remaining? How am I tracking? I can jump into the project and see additional details around that project, as well as billable information. So what we're trying to do is be transparent in the information we capture about our customers and show it out to them so they can see what we're doing and how we're doing on their projects. They can also jump in and look at timesheets. So all of our employees at Attack will record timesheets towards projects and towards cases. And so customer can come in here and go look at those, as well as see any open tickets for that given project. So our idea here is that we want to surface out as much information that we track about them as possible. And a lot of things like timesheets and our project information that we track is all custom that we've added in. But it was really quick to surface this out onto the portal in a kind of a consistent fashion. So our customers, employees of Acme in this case, can go and look at information that's related to their account. And when customers or users are coming into the portal, they can look at content from a number of ways. So depending on how you want them to engage, they can be looking at content that is only owned by them, that they've created and managed. Or in our case here in this example, we're showing content that is related to their whole organization as a whole. So they can see any case or any project in their organization that we're tracking, rather than just their stuff alone. So I'm going to jump into a support ticket here. I can see the active support tickets that we have going on. And there's some light information. I can also change views and do some filtering. And I can show all cases if I wanted to. So I can see that there's a number of them on here. 3 of them have been resolved and one's waiting on the customer. What I'm going to do is I'll create a new ticket and kind of show a bit of that process and how it engages with the Dynamics environment and how Attack employees would engage with this case. So to come in here as the customer, I'm going to say, I cannot access Dynamics. So as soon as I finish filling out that title, it's going to search knowledge base articles and surface up suggested articles that might help me resolve this issue. Now, right now, with the way our kind of casework comes in as and what it's like, we don't actually use a knowledge base too much. This is more for example purposes. But it can be super helpful for people if you are providing products or certain services that have kind of well-known or frequently asked questions that people come in or have challenges with. And so as they're trying to fill out a case, suggested topics can come up that I might actually help them solve their problem without having to actually fill out a case. And to go to the point of trying to help the user along with filling information, in our case here, we have a number of drop downs for them to go specify rather than just kind of type in whatever you want. So they can specify the type case. Let's see, it's a problem. They can also specify kind of what workload or what system they're using, since we have customers using a number of different systems. And at the end of the day, if they're wrong on these choices, it doesn't really matter so much because we will be triaging it and reviewing it and updating that case information as part of the routing to get it resolved internally. So I'm just going to say, I don't have permissions. Okay, it knows automatically who I am, and so that's all filled in. I can even put attachments in here if I want, show some screenshots. things like that. And I'm going to submit this case. So what's going to happen here typically, and I won't show some of these side pieces, but an email, a case is created now in our Dynamics environment, and an email would be sent out to the support team just to also notify them so that they have multiple avenues of information coming to them. And as the user here, I can see my new case was just created, and I can even go in here and see the information I just recorded. And obviously there's a little bit more. Origin came from the customer portal, for example. You can see how much time might have been spent on it already and if there's any additional comments. So we'll leave that there for now. And I'm going to jump over to the Batak employee side to kind of show you from the dynamic side what ends up happening and how you can interact with this. So as an employee, I might come in and I got the notification. The notification would probably have a link so I can get to the case directly. In this case, I'm just going to refresh my case view that I have open in the last 7 days, and I can see the new one just came in. Okay, so I can jump into this. Now we've tailored our case form quite a bit here, so I'm not going to go into those details. It's not really that important. Suffice to say that this stuff can be tailored to meet your kind of organizational needs and the information you want to capture. How you want to engage, things like service level agreements, do you have certain contracts in place, things like that. So as you can see right away, potentially here, you'll notice that there's a couple fields with red asterisks, which means it's mandatory, that are empty. This is stuff that we don't expect the customer to fill in and note, but this is something that we want on all our cases internally to manage. So before I can even do anything further on this case, I'm going to need to fill that stuff in. So I want to assign this to the appropriate project. And so I'm actually going to assign it to, say, the general support, even though it is Dynamics related. And I'm going to specify a follow-up, and I want to make sure I follow up by tomorrow, no later. And that really just provides me a reminder in case this case continues that long, which it won't. Beyond that, I'm going to just save that quickly here. And I'm going to actually assign it to myself as well. Assign it to me. So it's now going to become me as a technician working on this. Now I've gone and quickly taken a look, checked the permissions, and realized it was just some oddity with their security. So I'm going to make a note. Okay, so what we've done here as part of our customization is when we triage and work on cases, we have internal kind of information we share around, and we also have we also want to be able to externally share, especially with the portal, because that's a way they can actually interface and comment back and forth outside of email or a phone call or a meeting. So when I post kind of an update, I'm asked, because this came from the customer portal, I'm asked if I want to actually post this externally to the customer, or do I just want to keep it internal? And that's something we've kind of customized in the system to help our staff with deciding when they want to share information and comments or status updates to the customer or just internally as they're working on something. So I'm going to say yes. And what it's going to do is kind of give me a history down here. And it's actually notes, Blue just tells me that it actually went out to the customer portal. I'm going to resolve this case as well. Actually, I'll leave it for now. If I go to the portal now, so because I've sent off something, a portal comment for this case, so I'm not sure where we left off there when the stream got cut, but as a Batak employee, I was engaging with this case, and I sent off a note back to the customer through the portal saying that I've updated the security roles. And the customer was able to come in there and see that update, and then they actually added a comment back saying, hey, yeah, it's working now, thanks. And so when I look at the case here, I can see that they've responded back. I've got notification on that. And so now I can resolve this case and say, okay, it's completed. And depending on how you want the process to work, you can kind of include the resolution information as part of that final statement closing. The customer's going to get an update that we've changed the status anyway, and that they know that it's resolved. So in essence, if I come back up here and I'm the customer and I update this, we're going to note that this is now resolved and the problem has been solved. So And if I go back to my support tickets as a customer, my open cases is no longer there, the one I just created, because that has been resolved, but I would still be able to see it and get access to it if I looked at, let's say, closed cases. And there it is right there. So that in a nutshell kind of covers overall what I wanted to show in the portal as a quick example. Some other information and notes around the contact here. Like I was saying, that every single customer that logs into the portal is a contact in our system. So when I go into it, I can see similar information. I'm actually on a specific portal contact form here, which has a ton of stuff on it, but I can see the information they provided, and I can tweak that and tailor that. Additionally, I can also see what roles they have access in here. And so we have a couple different roles. One, generically, that they have access to the portal and that they can actually manage subscriptions. So this might help me out if I'm trying to support some issue that they're having with the portal, or I need to give them some additional security. And lastly here, I can see how they authenticate, and I can tailor some of that stuff and lock them out, but I can also see that they're using external identities versus a username and password that we're managing inside of Dynamics as part of the native portal experience. So I think finally what I want to get to on portals, lastly state, is that it is a good mechanism to surface content and data that you capture inside of your Dynamics or your Power Apps environment to your customers, and also have a way for them to engage, interact with it. And that's its primary intent, but like I've tried to show here, you can connect to other services, and you can be a lot more creative on the information you collect from other systems you might have in your organization and how you amalgamate that and show that in your portal, so you have a true kind of one-stop shop experience for your users.
So Terry, is it better in your opinion then to have a more open portal on the front end if I were just someone hitting your company's site for the first time to authenticate and go through and set up my own portal experience in your world? Or are there some trade-offs to, say, maybe putting a filtering mechanism where you can have an onboarding process? What do you think?
I think it really comes down to what your ultimate intent and goal is with these portals. How are you wanting your customers to engage? What do they want from you? And understanding some of those things really goes a long way to deciding how you're going to actually generate that experience for them. So for some organizations, it'll make a lot of sense just to be a little more open about it, and they can come in and see and register and see what services they have. But if your organization is very specific around the people you do business with, and for example, they need to also pay for the services and products, and the support you have towards that is bundled with the product or service that they're buying from you, then that makes sense. It makes better sense than to have more of a potentially formal process around onboarding, ensuring that you know who is engaging with you, or at least once they are an active customer, then you have a specific process in ensuring that they have an ability to self-register without having a lot of noise from any random customer that has no business of being in that system. So it really depends on your engagement with your customer.
Well said. One question that came in here through the chat is, I'll paraphrase here, but essentially, our business doesn't sell products. Do we need a portal? I think we've certainly gone through the service scenario. I don't know if you want to jump in on thoughts on this. We're getting a little long on time, so we'll keep it short. But in terms of product base, certainly you can start to surface up product catalogs, allow people to, the Amazon-esque experience where they can start to produce their own shopping cart. Those types of things are all possible depending on how you want to surface it up in a portal. Any other additional thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, as we've kind of shown here, we're not really surfacing products ourselves as an organization, and the portal works quite well for us from a support of a service, right? Or you can also have portals that just provide a more tailored experience to the organization. Like you have knowledge about your customers and who they are and what they do and how they engage with you, and therefore your portal might provide very tailored content and support services and information based on the information you've captured about that customer, right? And that provides value.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's the extent of the questions that have come in here. So thanks everyone for joining. Next week, based on some customer feedback earlier here, we are going to be going into. Oops, I should probably just start to share my slide again here. We're going to do a little bit of a session on building remote work capabilities. So helping people get proficient when they're working outside the four walls of the office. I think that was something to have addressed here. So that will be coming up next week. So thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.